And welcome into the second half of the Week 6 Countdown Show. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale, Frankie Santiago, and Mike Fontaine today. Was supposed to be on yesterday, but we got our scheduling a little mixed up this week. So we're just shuffling you around the full slate of programming at this point.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
Before we dive into the show itself, if you don't already follow us on social media, make sure to hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell. You can see all of our socials on the screen here. Frankie, did you get Fontaine's on the screen?
Yes.
Cool. Just want to make sure I wasn't lying to the...
It's right down.
Just lie.
Other
Just
way.
go. Just
There we go.
Listen,
tell them wrong.
I
It's
can't
there.
see the layout that Frankie has, so I just assume everything's there. If it's not, yell at him. And also go to make sure and follow Mike's channel, Trash Talk Sports. They give you more of a holistic sports view as opposed to just the narrow fantasy football view that you get from us. So good if you care about things that aren't just how many imaginary points did your quarterback score or will your quarterback score this week. Seeing as Mike was supposed to be on yesterday with us but was not, we do have his start and money pick of the week that we're going to make sure we get out there before we dive into the slate proper. Mike, do you want to take us away with those?
Sure. So, again, thank you guys for having me. And I just want to start off with my start of the week. I know he's been a letdown so far, but Jalen Waddle from the Miami Dolphins being my start of the week. I think this is the game that he needs to break out against an extremely porous secondary. The Jacksonville Jaguars in London. This is notorious for high-scoring games, and I believe that the Jacksonville Jaguars not only have one of the worst defenses in the NFL, but specifically against the pass and against a lot of speedy wide receivers, they struggle mightily, ranking number 25 in the entire NFL. So I like Jalen Waddle here. I think he's going to get a lot of targets. And you have the upside of hopefully Tua can come back. But either way, I think that he is a great start for you moving forward. And then next up for my money play, I have Michael Pittman, who will be playing against the Houston Texans. He's $5,500, and we saw Pittman get really involved in the Colts offense this past week. He had 89 yards and a touchdown, obviously 42 of them coming on the big touchdown catch, but I believe that he is gaining the trust of Carson Wentz. He is well immersed into this offense, and at $5,500, I think you're getting a steal with a guy who's going to have a lot of receptions. He's going to be a focal point in this offense, and going against a porous Houston Texans defense, nothing better than that.
I love the word porous.
Yeah.
It's a great word to describe bad defenses.
Sure.
Yeah, but I like those picks. I think both those receivers present great upside, and especially if you look at the sloppiness that is London defenses just in general. I could see offenses really honing in on those matchups. So yeah, I like those picks.
Sure. I mean, it does sound like Tua is going to be back this week too, so that is a nice little boost to the passing game. Gonna run through the injury news. Hopefully, it's a little bit quicker than yesterday. There's still, unsurprisingly, a lot of it. Given
We shouldn't go take a lap for this one just while we're waiting for you to get.
Yeah, if you guys want to skip the injury news, just go take a breather. Get a coffee and a donut. Come back in a couple hours.
Read a few novels. Yeah.
Russell Wilson was limited in practice today with a finger injury, which kind of surprised he was in practice, given that they were estimating 4 to 6 weeks recovery time. But sure, you do you, Russell Wilson. Go out there and throw with your left hand or something. I don't know. DK Metcalf was a DNP. Chris Carson was a DNP. Kind of expecting that. Those guys both sound like they're going to be game time decisions. Have backup plans for them in case they are unable to go this weekend. Melvin Gordon was limited in practice with a hip. Mike Williams was a DNP with that knee injury. Obviously, given his injury history, seeing 2 straight DNPs is a little worrisome for him. I'd like to see him be able to get back on the field tomorrow to sort of give us some confidence that he'll be able to get out there this weekend. Tyreek Hill also was a DNP today with a quad injury. Moving over to the Bears, Darnell Mooney was limited in practice with a groin. Allen Robinson was a DNP with an ankle, and Justin Fields once again practiced fully. So sounds like he is definitely going to be out there this weekend. What passing options he has available to him remains to be seen. and it remains to be seen if that's going to matter because Matt Nagy shouldn't be employed. But
For all 10 passes he throws, I'm sure it'll be very important.
yes.
Yes.
Sammy Watkins was a DNP today. Julio Jones and A.J. Brown both were able to fully participate in practice and are both expected to make their returns to the football field this week. On the Steelers side of the ball, they had Big Ben able to get a full practice in with his hip and pec injury. So good signs for him getting out there this weekend. Less good for Claypool and James Washington. Both of them are limited. James Washington with a groin. Claypool with a hammy. Obviously, those are both potentially fairly limiting for an already very limited passing game with Juju being on IR, and those are two injuries that can just even with it being limited, they can lay you up, they can take you out of a game early. So this is you're doubling down on Najee and doubling down on Deontay. Dalvin Cook was able to return to full practice today with that ankle. So good news for Dalvin managers who've been waiting for him to get back on the field. And bad news for Justin Jefferson managers as Justin Jefferson once again logged a DNP with his ankle. Packers, Aaron Jones, and Devontae Adams were both limited in practice today. Jones with an ankle. Adams was non-injury related. Neither of those particularly worrying for me. Zeke was once again limited with ribs in practice. The Browns and their slew of injured players, Njoku was able to return to limited practice. Looks like Hunt and Chubb were still DNPs today. Neither as they were both out there in full last week. It didn't seem like there was any major injuries in game. This still smells like rest days to me, although I would like to see them practice tomorrow to make me feel confident that it is a rest day. But definitely guys to keep an eye on as you're probably relying on both of them in your fantasy lineups. For the Cardinals, Kyler Murray and Chase Edmonds are both limited in practice with a shoulder. They should be out there this weekend. DeAndre Hopkins did miss practice with an injury, but this being the NFL, they have super magic drugs. He's probably going to be out there. Antonio Gibson was limited with shin splints. He's been playing through them. He's going to keep playing through them. And then the Giants, everyone is still hurt. Kenny Golladay and Saquon Barkley did not practice. Tony, Slayton, Shepard, and Danny Dimes were all limited in practice today. Danny Dimes does need to still pass the concussion protocol, but it seems like he's trending towards being able to play, so it's a good sign there at least. Moving over to the Patriots, Damian Harris was limited in practice today, although beat writers are reporting that he is expected to miss this weekend's game. Despite being limited, it sounds like they might hold him out and give him some time to heal up. So he is someone where we didn't mention this guy on the waiver show, but you should check your waiver wires for Ramondre Stevenson. He's out there in a lot of them. I know I picked him up in almost every league that I'm in this week because he just hasn't been really rostered at all. But if Damian Harris isn't able to get on the field, you're going to want Ramondre Stevenson, who's really their only healthy direct backup to him at this point. Damian Williams was placed on the COVID-19 list today, which means it is almost impossible he plays Sunday. Hopefully you have Khalil Herbert, as I believe he's the only healthy back in Chicago right now. And then CMC, who was declared 50-50 to be able to play this week, missed practice again today with a hamstring. Did I miss any news?
No, but
anything that you guys want to bring up that didn't end up on my list?
No, but I still think it's funny that the pylon took Zeke out.
Hey man, those things I assume have some sort of metal structure inside them.
Yeah, that was. I'm still hurt by that, but
he said it was the camera that he felt most, so it makes sense.
Sure. Frankie, you might be hurt by it, but I don't think that you're hurt anywhere near as much as Zeke is by it. All right. I think it's time that we dive into the second half of this slate here. I hope that these ones are a little more competitive than that first half because, man, there was a lot of home dogs going through the first 6 games.
The first game's not that great.
Yeah, it's kind of a garbage bowl. Cincinnati Bengals are going to visit the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions are 3.5-point dogs in this game at home, 47.5-point total, so respectable total for fantasy purposes. This one, I'm honestly kind of worried about it hitting the total. The Lions are pretty banged up right now. Hawk has been barely able to get practices in with that knee, and it seems like it's been slowing him down on the field. Obviously, Quintez Cephas is on IR. Jared Goff was saying they need to get Amon-Ra St. Brown more involved in the offense, but at this point, it just seems like they're just running out of bodies to put out there. Bengals are obviously they have Mixon coming back from injury. He was out there last week. He should be out there again this week. But I think the Bengals side of the ball is pretty straightforward. I'll start off with there. Obviously, you're starting Higgins, you're starting Chase, you're starting Mixon. Do you consider Joe Burrow to be a quality streaming option in this game?
I consider him to be a streaming option. I don't know how about quality. I don't know what his ceiling really is.
So he's outside your top 3 streamers for the week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, Burrow is he's turning into a little bit of a David Montgomery at the quarterback position. He's just going to come out, get you 20 points, and that's about it. Because we've seen him play against good defenses, bad defenses, good offense, bad offense. He just comes out and scores 20 points and then calls it a day. So
sure,
that's what I expect.
Yeah, I mean, against a Lions team that I don't expect to put up too many points, I would assume that it's going to be a heavy workload for Mixon and the running backs. So I expect that Burrow's not going to get a whole lot of work, even, with how well he's played so far. I just don't see it being something where they're going to put him out there. I think they're going to run the ball a lot, try to drive clock down, and just get out of the game healthy.
Lions side of the ball, talk to me about who, outside of DeAndre Swift, because he's an auto start at this point. Talk to me about who you guys are actually considering as viable fantasy starts in this game.
I mean, if I can go first,
you're allowed to say no one if it's no one.
I might flex St. Brown here, but I mean,
agree.
as far as like anybody else, I mean, there's really no one else that I want to even roster in this offense other than Cephas and Swift, and I mean Jamal Williams, but I mean those two were obvious, and Cephas is injured, so yeah, no, it's pretty much him. I'll flex him if I'm like in need of a flex, but yeah, no, that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, if Jamal Williams is a good to go for the weekend, I know he's dealing with an illness that's not COVID right now, so I'm willing to roll him out there just because he gets enough use, and Cincinnati's not that great of a defense, but the only ones I'm considering confident starts for me are Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially with Goff coming out saying that they need to get this kid more work because he's clearly showing out. So when the quarterback likes you, I like that idea that he's going to just get seeing the ball more. So
I like that you're calling him a confident start.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, I was like, I'll start him maybe if I need it.
I mean, the reason for my confidence is mainly because it's the Bengals, and Detroit doesn't really have anywhere else to go with the ball. So if they want to make offense happen, which they somehow, even though they're 0-5 and they've played some legit teams, they've still at least generated offense on a week-to-week basis. So it's not been pretty. Their team is banged up. Goff has looked hit or miss, but they're at least able to put some points on the board, and I think they should be able to continue to do that with getting yet another loss.
You heard it here first, folks. Vitale would start Amon-Ra St. Brown over Stephon Diggs. Moving on to the next game on the slate, 43.5 point total in a gross game. The Houston Texans are going to visit the Indianapolis Colts, who are 10-point home favorites here. The Texans probably aren't going to score points in this game again. This is just lined up to be another disappointing fantasy performance for the Houston Texans. I think it's Brandon Cooks and no one on their side of the ball.
Well, you're not starting Davis Mills. He almost dropped a 30 burger last week.
I mean, they put up 25 points last week.
Yeah, but it didn't matter for fantasy.
I know, 30 points. It's a lot of points. But in all seriousness,
it was 30 points to players that absolutely no one had in their roster. Unless you're in 28-man, just hell leagues.
32-man league where everyone has to start every single defense. Someone's out there having to start the Houston defense every week.
Honestly, between the low total with this game and the fact that both of these teams are pretty linear as to who you start, I mean, for the Texans, it's literally just Brandon Cooks. And for the Colts, I think it's just, Wentz maybe. Definitely Pittman and definitely Taylor. Is there anyone that you guys? I guess Mo Alley Cox has a plus matchup in this game. Houston blows against the tight end. But like, is there anyone that you guys feel strongly about that isn't one of those like studs in this game?
I mean, for me, that's pretty much where I'm at. I mean, again, I don't really like. I mean, Pittman's the real obvious one. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor. Mo Alley Cox, I like a lot this week as far as tight ends go, because we are seeing buys come in and some injuries to key tight ends. So I think he's fine here. There's nobody really else that's kind of jumping off the page at me though.
I think Zach Pascal's just too inconsistent
Yeah.
to ever even really look at him. I mean, he might be a nice roster spot if you need somebody to throw in there because of all the injuries we just keep piling on. But at the end of the day, I just don't feel comfortable playing him.
I mean, it's like, what's your upside with Zach Pascal? Like,
Yeah. I do think this one's very straightforward. The only two people I really want to point out here is I think Wentz is a great QB streamer for this week, as we talked about on the not the last show, the show previous. But Brandon Cooks, I feel like he's a sit this week. The Colts defense is solid enough, and we've seen Brandon Cooks kind of come back to earth from his hot start to the season.
Yeah.
I just can't trust them with Mills. Like Mills went out and put up 3 touchdowns and nothing went Cook's way. So my thought is that Mills is just throwing it to anyone that's open and he's not really looking for like a prime receiver here.
we
So
kind of knew that was gonna like that's what the Patriots do. They take away your top guy. The Patriots have had Brandon Cooks on their team. They know how to cover him. I think especially with this having 4 teams on a bye and a bunch of players injured, I don't know if you can sit Brandon Cooks with the target volume he gets. The Colts aren't going to be able to cover him like the Patriots did, and like, he's going to score points by just getting all of the balls dumped on him. It's not going to be pretty, but he's going to end up with 6 to 7 catches, 70 to 80 yards, and if he finds the end zone, fantastic.
I mean, I still consider pie in this guy because I mean Buffalo was able to contain him. He's
Yeah,
still got
Buffalo's one of the
solid.
best defenses in the league right now.
Right, but like I said, Indiana's is still on the better side of a defense. Like I just can't really trust him. So yes, if you can talk me into the start, but it's not a confident one.
Okay. Well, let's jump to the next matchup on our slate here. The Minnesota Vikings are going to visit the Carolina Panthers in a 45.5 point total here. The Panthers are 2-point home dogs. Christian McCaffrey could be back for this one. If he's not, I think you confidently start Chuba Hubbard, who's looked pretty good in Christian McCaffrey's absence. Obviously, DJ Moore is an insta-lock into your lineup. I don't really know if there's any other Panthers that you want on your fantasy team this week, even with all the injuries. Is there anyone that you guys are eyeballing that I'm overlooking?
No, for me, that's pretty much where the list is. I mean, nobody else has put up any kind of consistent, any kind of volume to get even like a high upside flex look. I mean, you're basically looking pie in the sky if you're starting any other receiver that's not DJ Moore. Yeah, I mean, the Panthers are pretty, unappealing to me.
I expected a lot more from Robbie Anderson, and I just haven't seen it. So,
What he said.
Yeah, it's a no from me.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, that makes that easy. Viking side of the ball, obviously Dalvin's a start. Thielen's a start, even against a tough Carolina defense. Jefferson's a start if he goes out there.
I'm gonna say, I mean, Thielen you probably have to start, but I'm not super confident in what he's gonna, especially if Jefferson's not out there.
I mean, sure, you want to be able to sit Thielen against a tough defense, but on a week like this, can you?
Yeah, I keep forgetting that we're in bye week hell.
Bye week hell, and everyone in the league is injured.
Yeah, he's also going into the game banged up though, and Carolina's
yeah, Thielen's always banged up.
Yeah, but like
he either plays through it or is on IR. That's how Thielen exists.
I don't know. I'm looking at other options. I might not have any, so I might need to start him. But
I mean, I think Thielen's a touchdown or bust candidate this week.
Yeah, I'm not super jazzed if I have to start Adam Thielen, and hopefully Justin Jefferson gets out there because then I feel a little bit more confident if I have to start him because then he's taking some of the pressure off him. But
sure.
I mean, Jefferson, again, they have like 6 key players all going in banged up too, so that offense looks kind of like it's in shambles at this point.
And obviously, we're sitting Kirk Cousins in this one, correct?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's jump to the next game here, and what should be a much more exciting affair, the first of the 4 o'clock games. We are looking at the Arizona Cardinals heading on up to Cleveland and what also might be the first weather game of the season. Supposed to be some high winds in Cleveland this weekend. 49-point total that I would definitely take the under on if that weather does end up, persisting. Cleveland Browns obviously coming in a little banged up, but you're starting Nick Chubb and you're starting Kareem Hunt if they're out there. The question marks for me with the Cleveland Browns are at the wide receiver position, because Odell Beckham, obviously still a massive name, hasn't, aside from his first game back this season, hasn't done really anything at the wide receiver position. Are you guys trusting Odell Beckham this week? I believe Jarvis Landry is still on IR. There's no one else to speak of in the passing game. Does he make the cut for you guys, or is he riding the pine?
He's like a low end flex for me, because this Arizona defense is good, but we also have seen them let up points. And I mean, Baker is capable of throwing the football, but it's kind of just like it kind of reminds me of last, like Adam Thielen. He's going to be a boom, he's going to get a touchdown, or he's going to be, 2 catches for 20 yards and just be the guy.
If it helps inform your decision, Byron Murphy did return to practice this week.
Yeah, he is at the very best for me a low end flex option.
Yeah, I agree as well. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I agree as well. I just think that Odell is the shiny object over in the corner, and you get over there, and it's nothing that you ever wanted in your life. But at the end of the day, since he went to Cleveland, he just has not been the Odell Beckham Jr. we were accustomed to. And I don't know if it's that Baker can't work with big name receivers, or if he can't work with the talent that Odell has, if they're just not on the same page. I don't know what the deal is, but him and Odell have never been on the same page as much as him and Jarvis have, and some of the other receivers that have come out of Cleveland. So I'm hoping that he can get a big game and I can move him for somebody else that I trust more.
Sure.
He's not having it anymore.
Just I'm curious where you guys have, seeing as we've kind of been lukewarm on a couple at least decently big name receivers in these last 3 matchups. Odell or Adam Thielen?
Thielen.
Thielen, because Jefferson may not play, and he's also injured, so they may look toward him more.
Sure.
I'll take Odell here.
Odell or Brandon Cooks?
Brandon Cooks.
Brandon Cooks.
Okay, so we found someone that Vitale would start Cooks over.
Yeah, I'm very down on Odell this week. I think he's just a hard sit. You got to wait till he does something. He's coming back from an injury. It could just be one of those things where he's older. He's dealt with a lot of injuries, so it just might take him a little bit to get going. So,
sure.
Yeah, for me, he's just a straight up sit.
Cardinals side of the ball, pretty banged up also, honestly. I mean, Chase Edmonds and Kyler Murray both dealing with that shoulder. We saw Kyler deal with the shoulder last season that really hampered his fan. He went from being just absolutely on fire, torching the league, to being fairly pedestrian because he just couldn't move the ball like he could when he was healthy. Chase Edmonds banged up. DeAndre Hopkins dealing with an illness. Are you guys worried about the fantasy out? Take the wind or the potential wind out of it. Are you guys worried about the fantasy output of the Cardinals in this game with, a potentially hampered Murray, potentially hampered RB1, potentially hampered wide receiver 1?
I alluded this on. One of the sits of the week on a Fontaine show the other day for me was Chase Edmonds, because, that Cleveland interior has looked so good, and they looked really good last week. And,
sure.
If he's going into the game banged up, and, James Conner has been the touchdown guy. Chase Edmonds doesn't have a touchdown all year. So, for me...
Yeah, the only reason Eckler had a good day is because the Cleveland defense picked him up and carried him into the end zone.
But, no, for me, Chase Edmonds is a sit this week. If I'm starting one running back in this game for Arizona, it's going to be James Conner. As far as wide receivers go, the Cardinals are
obviously you're starting Nuke if he's out there. Are you giving anyone else a look in this game? Rondale Moore has been running a good amount of routes while he's been on the field. Christian Kirk has Ben Christian Kirk.
I'll probably.
Obviously, Max Williams is on IR, so those targets have to go somewhere.
I'm more comfortable with Rondell than I am with Christian Kirk. We've seen Rondell have good games this season, especially the first couple of games where he was kind of just blowing up, and then he's had some downers in there, but who doesn't? I think just based on the snaps he's getting, the routes he's running, I think he's a good flex play here. He's one of the more confident ones that I have. I mean, I am more confident in the wide receivers getting the work done on the field than the running backs this week.
Yeah, I kind of hate this just because right now I feel like Kirk and Rondell Moore should be doing more as they're when you look at it, they're just losing snaps to AJ Green, who's doing not that much with him. He's had a couple good games here and there, but he came back to earth against San Fran. For me, this game, honestly, I am very worried about it because high wins, if they have to play into the running game, which plays into what the Browns want to do, the Browns are comfortable having just a slog of a run and play defense style game here. So I could just see this being a Nick Chubb game, and everyone else is kind of just scrounging for points, hoping they get in the end zone. But other than that, like, it's going to be rough sledding. I think Kyler Murray is going to have to basically do it all by himself, especially if Hopkins isn't there.
The Browns
I
do want to
agree.
beat you in a rock fight.
Yes.
Go ahead, Fontaine.
I agree. I think that the Cardinals, with the weather outlook the way it is, and usually it's pretty bad in Cleveland when it's bad.
Yeah, it's Cleveland.
Yeah, listen, we saw Mike Williams just torch the Browns defense last week. I mean, just he was open like a shop on fucking Black Friday. I mean, he was just he was all open. But I don't know who that person is going to be for the Cardinals, and that concerns me. Vitali said that we haven't seen much from Kirk or Moore. I just want one to pull away, one to show that they can be that guy, because if you have both, then you're questioning it every single week. I just want to see somebody come over and be that guy. I thought it might be AJ Green, but again, against San Francisco, he just let us down once again. So I really don't know what this game is going to look like. And with the weather, you said it, Nick Chubb, this is going to be a Nick Chubb Kareem Hunt game, and the Cardinals are going to be left with their hands out saying, why can't we run the ball?
Probably because they don't have an O-line, but that's a story for the offseason.
Get more receivers.
Yeah.
That's
The answer is always just more receivers. Cliff Kingsbury is trash.
Just move him in to block.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry. I looked at the next. So I looked at the next game on the slate here. The Patriots are only 3-point underdogs against the Cowboys coming into Foxborough. Huh. All right. Let's go ahead and break this. So 50.5-point total in this game.
I'm taking the Cowboys.
And the Cowboys are
at
only
-3.
3-point favorites in Foxborough. Vegas isn't dumb. So obviously they're seeing something here that maybe we aren't. The Cowboys, their starts are pretty clear. You start everyone because everyone in their offense is fantasy relevant. On the Patriots side of the ball, because with a basically split down the middle line, that's Vegas saying the Patriots are going to score in this game. What Patriots are we rolling out in this game? Is Mac Jones a streamer for you guys with that expected total? And looking at the weather report, I don't see any negative weather on the horizon for this game. So predict to be a good weather game and a high total.
I would say Mac Jones is fine. I mean, I'm not as confident as I am with some other streamers of the week. But, I mean, we saw what Sam Darnold did to the Cowboys just a couple of weeks ago. And I think that the way that our defense plays, it's where we're not looking, unless it's like Lamar Jackson, we're not looking at the quarterback. We'll let a quarterback beat us on the ground for whatever reason it is. But no, I also like Patriots tight end as well. Hunter Henry, he's looked good these past couple of games. I'm off to a slow start. We kind of thought it was going to be Jonah to start the year. It seems like, Hunter Henry's more of that guy than Jonah was.
I mean, to his credit, he's just performed better on the field.
Yeah.
He hasn't pirouetted the ball into enemy hands.
Yeah, for me, Mac is not a start just because I saw a stat that really was kind of eye-opening for how the Patriots are playing this year, and they were talking about how they are third in drives that end up in a field goal. and they are 31st in red zone conversions to a touchdown. And I
Mhm.
think we're seeing that with Mac Jones barely. I don't think he's broken 10 points or 20 points yet this season. His receivers are like deep flex options for me. I'm willing to start Jacoby Myers just because he gets targets, and they're going to need to play pace up to play in this game. But I think most of the targets, or at least the quality targets, you're going to see going to the tight end position. So, yeah, I agree with Frankie on the tight end position there, and I think the only other person I'm really comfortable starting here is Jacoby Myers.
When I see the Cowboys, obviously Trayvon Diggs on the defensive side of the ball is the guy that stands out the most, and I think the Cowboys are going to struggle because he shuts down the top receiver on the opposing offense. And if you were to point to a top receiver for the Patriots, it's not going to be Jacoby Myers because he plays in the slot. It's going to be Nelson Aguilar. And I mean, we've seen him just decoy run down the field most of the time anyway. So essentially, Josh McDaniels is taking Trayvon Diggs out of the equation and just saying we're going to either bludgeon you with the running game, and either Brandon Bolden or Ramondre Stevenson is going to hopefully hit the hole with some conviction, or we're going to just dot you up down the field with Kendrick and Jacoby, and maybe N'Keal Harry gets involved. But I think there's too many options, too many bad options, fantasy wise, to choose from. So I'm not starting Mac. I'm not starting any receiver that's not named Jacoby Myers. I think Hunter Henry has the upside on Jonnu, but also it could be a Jonnu week. I mean, you just never know with both of them being in the same offense. So at the end of the day, I just throw my hands up and say Jacoby Myers is the offense.
Sure. Obviously, Damian Harris to start if he's active. If he's not, you start Ramondre Stevenson. You mentioned Brandon Bolden, Fontaine. Are any of you guys really? He seems to be taking the James White role in this post James White system that we're looking at. Do you trust Brandon Bolden this week as a even just as a kind of risky flex and hope that he gets 6 or 7 targets in this game?
Um, depending on what my record looks like, I'm not willing to risk a win if I need one on Brandon Bolden here.
It is really rough for me, even as a Pats fan, to recommend Brandon Bolden, our like special teams specialist, as the passing down back. But I mean,
Yep.
he is getting the looks. He gets a couple carries, and I
And
think
if
the issue.
Damian Harris is out, he might play in the running game more than we think.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with him is you're never like he's never going to be the goal line back here, especially with Ramondre out there. He's too much of the LeGarrette Blount for the team. So he's like a prayer for Lex. Like maybe he can pull a Naheem Hines and catch one for at the 15-yard line and just run it in. Like that's the only way he's scoring is if he scores like a deep red zone target.
Yeah, no,
Okay, well,
I agree.
go ahead.
No, yeah, I agree. And I just think Brandon Bolden, again, we saw what he could do when he did it against the Patriots in Miami. So he has the capability. He just has not unleashed it enough for us to want to risk a flex spot on him.
Sure.
He's only in year 9. He's got a couple years to really unleash it. Running backs when they hit 32, that's when they're in their prime.
All right. You know what? Let's move away from the shootouts back to the lower totals here. We've got another divisional game. Las Vegas Raiders are heading to Mile High to go visit the Denver Broncos in a 44-point total.
Gross.
Broncos are 3.5-point home favorites here. Raiders are obviously going to be, even if they're happy about the Gruden firing, it doesn't seem like a lot of people around the league are broken up about it. They're still playing without their head coach. Typically, teams that lose their head coach don't immediately perform very well because you're just firing the CEO midweek and hoping that everything works out.
Yeah.
Broncos side of the ball, obviously, the weapons that we expect to be out there are going to be out there. I don't think you start Teddy in this one, and Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant you probably have to put into your lineups. What are you guys doing with the Broncos running backs? There's been talk that they're going to get Mike Boone more involved, and they've already got a gross 2-headed monster out there. If they're going to try and switch to some 3-headed, more of like a Hydra type running back, are we just fading all Broncos running backs until one of them dies?
Yeah,
I mean,
for me, like it kind of reminds me of the Ravens a little bit that we talked about last show.
Except worse, like so much worse.
Like this is gonna be a pace down game, anyways. I think that this is gonna be. I think this is gonna hit the under. It's gonna be ugly and not pretty, and I really just think that. I expect the Broncos to win, but if they want to just run the clock out like they usually do, they're going to have to use their running back, so someone's going to get the carries. So I'm comfortable. Like, if I have one of them, I probably don't have both of them. I'm comfortable throwing whoever it is in the flex and just, maybe they get 10 carries, 40 yards. Maybe they get a touchdown. I'm fine with that in my flex. Again, it's like not a high upside play, but I think that the floor is going to be fine the way that I see this game's going to go.
Sure.
Yeah, there's not much to like about the running back room for Denver, other than the fact that they just promoted Demira Crockett up to their starting roster. So now, if injuries happen, we could see a backfield led by Boone and Crockett, and that just makes me laugh a little bit on the inside. But other than that, there's really not much value here. Yeah, it's a nice little tummy laugh.
Backfield the Alamo.
Yeah, basically. But Gordon is a deep flex just because he at least gets enough work to where he's not going to absolutely kill you, but he is not winning you a week.
Raiders go ahead.
No, I just think that we got to monitor the Gordon injury situation. I know he's questionable and he'll probably play, but it depends on how much it's hurting him. Because I think Javonte could be one of those guys that could murk some reps away from him for a little bit, but it's not anything I'm wagering a flex spot on for sure.
Okay. Raiders side of the ball, in a total like this, you don't start Derek Carr. It's pretty much just Waller and Renfro, right?
Yeah. Unless you have to start Bryan Edwards for whatever reason.
There's better options, I guarantee.
Frankie, if someone's making you start Brian Williams, blink twice. Or Bryan Edwards, blink twice.
What do I do if the entire league has picked up all the viable free agents?
There's still more out there.
Then trade for someone.
Go start Crockett.
Yeah, throw a dart.
That was like
Seattle Seahawks are visiting the Pittsburgh Steelers in the an even lower total. Okay, well, we have to talk about the game all the same. So
it is Geno time.
Do we? We could just not talk about it.
No, there's too many technically fantasy relevant players on these teams for just to skip the match. It's not the Jets of last season.
Oh God.
So 42.5 point total here. The Steelers are 5.5 point home favorites.
Thank God for that defense.
So Chris Carson, it sounds like the Seahawks expect Chris Carson to get out there this week. It sounds like they expect DK Metcalf to get out there this week. Tyler Lockett is obviously still healthy. What level of trust do we have here in any Seahawks option in a Geno Smith-led offense?
I don't.
Not much.
I think they already punted 3 times.
They just scheduled their first 3 drives.
Yeah,
we know this is the result.
Yeah, in all seriousness, Pittsburgh's tough to run against. Pittsburgh's tough to pass against. Pittsburgh's just difficult to play offense against. And that's with a good quarterback. Now we have Geno Smith. And I think there's a reason why this game has a lower total, because I think both offenses are going to struggle in this game. I think that the defense is going to carry Pittsburgh. It's not really going to be the offense that's doing a lot of the work. So, I mean, you have to start DK Metcalf. You might be able to flex your way out of Tyler Lockett. But if Carson plays, I'm looking to see if there's better options, because he's going in banged up against Pittsburgh. And, I mean, we talked about this last season. I mean, I know it's a different time, but, we talked about you sit your running backs against Pittsburgh because they're just those guys.
As a Carson manager, I can confirm there are not better options.
Just go pick up Ramondre Stevenson.
I did. I also have Damian Harris. It's rough in the streets out there.
What are you guys thinking about Seattle?
I mean, I still start DK Metcalf just because the the athletic skill he has, he can take a crappy pass and bring it to the house, as we saw with that breakaway speed that he's had. Tyler Lockett, I really reduced the ceiling for him because I don't think he can. I don't think he can do those boom passes and down the field plays that he normally does with a Geno-led offense. So I feel like Metcalf's the only like confident pass catcher that I can start here. If Carson plays, you play him. I am just. This is a gross matchup, and I'm eager to see which quarterback scores worse. And I don't. I think it's a coin flip. Like, man.
Yeah, I mean, don't get fooled by the mirage that was Geno Smith last week. I mean, he's still Geno Smith for a reason. He
Yep.
still was drafted by the Jets for a reason. So
Mm-hmm.
when it's all said and done, he may have looked great, but you're not going to want to take him to prom. And I don't like this offense here. And at the end of the day, we're under the assumption that Chris Carson's going to play. This could easily be an offense led by Geno Smith and Alex Collins. That does not sound appetizing to anyone.
I think led is
No.
a strong word.
I mean, honestly, from how I've been evaluating this game, I start two players. I start, or I guess three, but it's an either or. I start DK Metcalf and I start Chris Carson unless he doesn't play, and then I start Alex Collins. I probably have to. Tyler Lockett's a sit for me because he relies too much on the pinpoint accuracy of Russell Wilson to make big plays happen. Geno's not going to be able to do that. Tyler Lockett to me is a massive trap in how this offense is set up. I'm sitting him for guys like Kadarius Toney or Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'd rather start the waiver hotness than Tyler Lockett because I really don't think he has a floor or a ceiling until Russell Wilson gets back.
What about Steelers side of the ball?
Steelers side of the ball, I think it's pretty linear. You start Najee and you start Deontay.
I think it's going to be a big Najee week.
If Claypool's active, you probably start Claypool, but he did run he ran a lot of routes in the slot after Juju went down. But like the Steelers don't spread the ball around enough to make their other guys worth it. We talk about how we hate rookie tight ends. You can't start the Muth in this one. Freiermuth is. I don't know. I mean, is there anyone that you guys are like? Are you guys big James Washington truthers?
No. It is three players for me on this team, just like the Seahawks. It's Najee, Deontay, Claypool if he plays, and that's it.
Is this going to be another 19 target Najee week?
Might be a 19 target Deontay week. All right, let's close out this slate here. We have a little bit of a we have a palate refresher to round out the week. We got the Buffalo Bills going to visit the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans are 5.5-point home dogs in a 54-point total. There's going to be a fantasy bonanza for it's like a going away present for the Bills before they go on their bye.
I think the Bills are going to fucking smoke them.
Yeah, 100%. But
I'm not sorry for the language that time.
The Titans are finally healthy. So, what side of the ball do you guys want to start with?
Start with the Bills.
Okay, let's start with the Bills then. Obviously, Josh Allen is a start. You start him always. I think that there is discussion to be had after Josh Allen about which of his passing options are the locked-in starters versus the ones where you're a little more hesitant about. I mean, we have enough tape on Stephon Diggs so far this season. He's clocking in around the wide receiver 25. He is not an auto start this season. Emmanuel Sanders is arguably more of an auto start than Diggs is. So what are you guys doing with this Bills passing and rushing game where it seems like any given week, any of them could be the dude?
Crying. I mean, I'm a Stephon Diggs owner, and I literally just don't know what to do. Like, I want to start him because I know what the potential is, but there's no way I can just continue to just. I mean, I feel like I'm in the definition of insanity, just hoping for a new outcome, and I'm just not getting it with Diggs this year.
Yeah, it's even more rough because it's not like he's not been Allen Robinson bad, where it's just you sit him and you let him get back to what he should be. He is playing just well enough where you have to start him, but he's not winning you weeks. He's actually probably losing you weeks. But for me, it's easier. I guess it's easier for me because I don't have any ownership of Diggs this week. But I'm saying to start him. I understand if you're a Diggs manager, it's probably a little bit harder to just plug him back in and set it and forget it. But for me, I think the options, it's four guys here. It's Zach Moss, Stephon Diggs, Manuel Sanders, Dawson Knox, and that's it.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. It's I understand the Stephon Diggs dilemma as someone who also has no shares of Diggs, but I think he's still just that guy where it's like I can't not flex him because he's Stephon Diggs. Like at the very least, I have to have him in the flex. Like, okay, here are my three confident guys, and then I gotta put him there because I don't want to be the guy who lost because Diggs came back to being himself and he had a huge game.
It's even more rough because at least you could try and explain it to yourself if Josh Allen was playing bad, but in the past few weeks he's been just lighting it up, and just none of those points are going to Diggs. I guess.
What are you guys doing with resident tinfoil hat wearer Cole Beasley? 13 targets in week 1, 13 targets in week 3, 4 targets, 2 targets, and 2 targets in weeks 2, 4, and 5.
So let me say this.
Obviously, the Bills dump points out there, and this is a really high total. Do you roll the dice and hope that he ends up north of 10 in this game?
No, because you know what wasn't a factor before? Dawson Knox. You know what's suddenly becoming a factor? Dawson Knox. And I think that that's where a lot of Cole Beasley's targets that we saw him start the season with are going, because now Josh Allen's realizing, oh, I have this other guy I can throw the ball to.
Yeah, the big reason why he's a sit for me and approaching a drop is because if you look at his snap percentage, it is just a slide going straight down into the red. Starting at 91% snap percentage, 60, 66, 50, 39. Like, he is clearly getting phased out of this team, and it's tough to say because he at least was producing when he was getting targeted, but it could be just that they don't want to have to rely on a guy that could potentially be gone if he catches COVID, or it could be something else, or it's just the emergence of Dawson Knox. Like that, it could be a couple different things. But
I mean, honestly, Manny Sanders has hurt him a lot too because Manny Sanders is playing in his role.
Right. So there's just enough there where it's clearly the team is moving away from him in a concerted effort. Like, we have 5 weeks looking at right now. That's a good enough sample size for me to see how this team is trying to use their receivers and their pass catchers, and they're moving away from Beasley. So for me, that's a sit and a borderline drop.
Okay. Titan side of the ball, I think Tannehill is playable in this one. I think he's honestly with this total, you can chase those. It's scary because that Bills defense is legit, but like they're gonna have to throw to keep up, and then you start all 3 of their other big name guys, right? I mean, or are you guys sitting Julio in this one?
I'm playing Julio. I think at the end of the day, they're going to have to come out firing on those cylinders, and I think it's going to have to be Julio and AJ. And if you're relying on Julio, you're going to have to live and die by what the Titans do against this Bills defense.
I think for me, I'm kind of in the same position with Stephon Diggs that I am with Julio, where it's a little bit less so because Julio hasn't. I mean, he started off hot, and then obviously he's coming back off an injury, something that we've seen him do before. And after he gets his mid-season injury, he's never really the same Julio. He just kind of seems out of sorts. But I mean, again, this is going to come down to like, do I have a better flex option? I mean, I'm actually interested to see, you guys, if you're between Diggs and Julio, who are you starting here?
Diggs.
All right.
Not even a question for me. All right. Well, I think that's all the fantasy relevant players that we can scrounge up for this week. So that'll do it for the Countdown Show. Join us next week as we hopefully have a less exciting waiver show to roll out. I'd like to have less injuries to have to talk about.
Yes.
Any closing remarks from you guys? Are we good to round this one out?
No. Just looking at Derrick Henry's stat line, it looks like he's a quarterback that's throwing for low yardage there. Remember, those are rushing attempts, not passing attempts, and it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. He is not human.
Mm-mm. He's a robot built only to play football.
Yes.
All right, that'll do it for us. Join us next week, and I hope you guys all have a great weekend and win all of your games except for you, Garrett.
Exactly.